You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey, glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your hosts, Keith Wheeler
and Nuria Colby.
And what are we talking about today, Nuria?
Today we're going to talk about a subject that you know more about than me, and that is holding author visits. And I'm really looking forward to this one because I want to find out how you can do them, what is a good thing about it, why should you have author visits? So I'm really interested in this one. And I know you've got experience in this.
I have been doing, we're calling them author visits, but I'm really lumping in, trade shows, craft fairs, basically any in-person event. So, even if you're not an author, even if you do low content, no content books, puzzle books or whatever, this is still important for you because it actually can be even better for those people than authors. And we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I think one of the first things that we should kind of cover is why would someone want to do that? Why should you? Because I mean, it is a bit work. It's going to be a lot more work than just putting something up on Amazon and getting organic sales.
Yeah.
So there's definitely reasons why I've done it. I mean, I do it both for my written content as well as I've done it for my no content, low content books. And
wow.
So
that's really interesting.
I've been doing in-person visits, whether it's to a school as an author visit or to, like I said, a craft fair or whatever, for probably close to a decade now. And I keep doing it for a reason because it's very beneficial for my business.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason I haven't done them is because I know I'm on YouTube and everything, and I might seem extroverted, but I'm not. I'm an introvert. I don't like going out and facing a group of people. Yep. And again, it's silly because I used to be a teacher and I used to do that all the time. But for some reason, I do feel there's a kind of block or a wall that I don't want to cross over. And I've been really lucky in the sense that I haven't needed to do it. My books sell well, so that I didn't feel that, I should really do it because I want to give them a push. So I've been lucky in that sense, but I can really see how important this could be for, especially I'm thinking of my students in my children's book course. This is something that they should be doing. And I'm really interested in this whole process because I've never personally done it. I've heard about it and I've seen people do it. But doing it yourself is a whole different thing. So I'm a little bit, I don't know, maybe shy or just not confident enough to do it. So do you think you need to have special confidence to do it, or can we all do it if we just wanted to?
Honestly, I think anybody can do it. A lot of people even people that meet me find it hard to believe, but I am introverted myself. I really am. I have this ability, and I don't know if it's from taking acting classes back in school, but I have this ability to basically almost like put on a mask where it's like, okay, I'm now Keith the author, or I'm not, you know what I mean, as opposed to just Keith, and so that's kind of giving me a little bit of a barrier in between. But the bottom line is think about the people that are going to be coming to a craft fair or coming to a book signing or whatever. They're coming because they're interested in books. They're not going to judge you. They've never been an author. They've never created a book most of the time. So they already think of you at a higher level than they are. And so if that's the fear, as far as like, not wanting, I don't know if I'm going to do it right. Most consumers have never met an author. And so if you're doing it wrong per se, they would never know anyway, and so that I would say that's the biggest thing. And I agree. Like I said, I've been doing it for almost a decade. The reason why I didn't do it early on in my book publishing career is for that exact reason. I was introverted. I was nervous about it. I thought I was going to have to buy, I didn't want to have to buy hundreds of books. because that can be very pricey. And if you don't sell them, then you got to have a place to store them. And yeah, I been there, done that.
Mm.
And so my goal with this topic is to reassure people that you don't have to worry about all that. If you run out of books, that is a great thing. That's a great problem to have. Um,
Yeah.
but uh, but yeah, it's the reason why I still do it. Do I get more sales that way? Yes, I get sales. I get I get a higher profit because I'm buying it at cost instead of the royalties that I get from KDP or whoever you're publishing through. So I get higher profits. So even if I sell less books, I'm still making the same amount of money or more. Um, I'm I'm getting that people buy from people that they know, like, and trust, or brands that they know, like, and trust. And so if you if they meet you in person, they already have a better chance of buying more of your stuff because now they know you. Even if it's just for a few minutes and you signed a book, or you just sold them something, or you had a little conversation, it doesn't matter. They now have this rapport with you that they wouldn't have had otherwise. Uh, but the other reason I like it is I learn so much from like from my customers, even if they don't buy from me, just having the conversations, getting ideas for my next book, or a completely, for no content, low content books for a completely different topic that I never would have thought of, you know, but the only way you can really communicate with them is in person. Really. I mean, Amazon doesn't have a messaging system where you can communicate with your reviewers or whoever. I mean, you can kind of respond to reviews, but you're not really supposed to. So there's really no other way other than an email list to make them your customer. And even with an email list, there's still that disconnect because it's online. But again, if you see them, you see the whites of their eyes, and you get that communication, you have a much better chance of getting a long-term customer.
Yeah, I think that is the beauty of it because you can actually talk to your readers or your
Yeah,
potential readers, and they
right.
can see who you are and get to know you. And then to hold a book that was written by a person that they've met is such a different experience to buying one off Amazon and just getting it delivered in the post. So I think that is, of course, that will have a completely different effect on your buyer. And the other thing that I liked that you said earlier was that you can also do that with low content books. And I've never
Yes.
really considered it for low content books, but I can see now absolutely you could do it. And I remember when I was doing the jewelry business, because I said I'm too shy to do something like this, but I actually did similar things with the jewelry business. I used to go to wedding fairs and places like
Hmm.
that and have a little stand and show my jewelry. And the other thing we used to do is I used to have jewelry parties. So
Right.
it would be a friend of mine or a friend of a friend who
Hmm.
hosts a party at their home, and I would bring a load of jewelry. People would try it on and talk about it, and then hopefully buy some as well, which they did. And I'm thinking maybe we could do that with our books as well,
Yeah.
have book parties. I think
Yeah.
that would be a good idea. And that could be just friends, even.
Right.
You wouldn't have to meet any strangers in that sense. So
Yeah.
I wonder, have you ever done it for low content books as well?
I have. And
Wow.
what you said is actually the reason why it does so well for low content, no content books. It's because not many people are doing it. Not many
Yeah.
people think about doing it. And because of that, the competition is so little.
Yeah.
I've gone to, around the holidays, go to craft fairs, and I'll have my children's books out there, and there's another children's book author, two stalls down, and another author, on the other side of the room or whatever. But when I'm selling puzzle books, or I'm selling coloring books or journals or whatever, there's nobody else selling those at these competition, or at these conventions and things like that. So again, it's just you stand out more.
Mm.
You're more unique, which means people are gonna, oh, a lot of consumers never imagine seeing someone who's selling puzzle books or coloring books or journals at a place like that. And so because of that, they stop and they ask questions. And again, you just learn so much, and they're more interested in buying. You can even lower the price than it is on Amazon, because again, you're getting a higher profit because you're buying it at cost. And yeah, it's just there's so many ways that it's been super beneficial for my business, and not just my author brands, but the no content, low content books as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting quite excited now because this is something, for some reason, I haven't thought of doing that, not with low content books
Yeah,
anyway. And I think actually that's a brilliant idea because there are so many places I can think of now that I could take my books to. And I've actually just thought about some that I think would do really well. And I'm thinking of places like local schools as well. They don't necessarily have to be children's books.
right.
Over here in the UK, a lot of schools have Christmas markets or
Hmm.
summer fairs and things like that.
Right.
And I used to do it with the jewelry. I don't see why I couldn't do it with journals or notebooks. I mean, that's an ideal thing to sell at a school, I think.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's one
Yeah.
thing I can think of. So what a
Yeah.
great
And
idea.
and you could do it for local bookstores. Local bookstores love author visits and things like the author signings, because what it's doing is, and this is when you approach somebody to do an author visit, or I mean a craft fair and things like that, that's usually just something you sign up for. But if you want to do something like an author visit or at a school, obviously you need to reach out to the school. If you are doing something at a book signing at like a bookstore or wherever, what you really want to do is you want to it needs to be less about you and more about them. So why would they want to have you in there? And the biggest reason is you're bringing in more people.
Mm,
By you promoting that you're going to be at such and such bookstore, you're bringing people into that bookstore that may not have even known that bookstore existed. And so it's a really good thing for like smaller independent bookstores. Places like Barnes and Noble, depending on the branch of Barnes and Noble, there may be steps you have to take and things like that. But you can just call them up and ask. I mean,
yeah.
the worst they can say is we don't do author visits right now. Boom, it's a phone call, done. But again, especially with the local bookstores, even things like no content, low content books, they can be very interesting because the bottom line is you're bringing people into their facility,
Yeah.
and if they're in there, there's a better chance they're going to buy something else. And so, it's kind of a win-win relationship, and that's the way you need to present it when you reach out to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, I mean, you can do, craft fairs and, other, holiday fairs and things like that too.
Yeah. And I guess it brings publicity for the bookstore or for
It does.
wherever you're doing it. It's all marketing for,
Right.
it goes both ways. So if there's a local writer that's selling their books or does book signings, that's exciting for
Right.
the bookstore as well. So I can see how that is a win-win situation for all of them. And I realize not every bookstore might do that, or they might already
Hmm.
have specific people that are doing it for them. But yeah, I can see the possibilities now. So
Yeah.
we've got schools, and that includes Christmas fairs, summer
Right.
fairs, or whatever they do. Local bookstores we could go to. I'm trying to think of other places that this could be an opportunity for. So I
Look at your local
guess
libraries.
local libraries, yeah, that's another one. Yeah. And I guess even we have things here in the UK that are car boot sales. And I know that some people might think, well, that's not very good because people usually expect to pay very little at a car boot fair. But we could try it. I mean, it's not, it's so cheap to have a little stall at a car boot fair and just sell your books maybe. It's all about, I don't know, just showing people your face and having that interaction,
Hmm.
I guess.
Right.
So I think
And
that's
and
a good place.
yeah, and there are some other benefits that I'll cover in a second. Because I do want to kind of give some some of my tips, things I've learned over the years, um, things to make where you don't make the same mistakes I've made.
Yeah.
Um, and the first one is to plan ahead, and not just make sure that you have enough books, but again, like I said, don't order too many, like, I mean, especially with your first one. I think the first one I did, I might have sold 10 copies. So, maybe order 15, something like that. And you can kind of get a feel because you already know your own audience. You know how it's selling online, and what you think in your area the interest would be.
Mm.
So like I said, 10, 15. Because worst case, you run out. That's a great problem to have. But the other thing is, and this is something that I didn't do early on that I wish I had, but I caught on. I did it. I think it was the second time, and that was, not only did I have books, but I had a little pad where people could sign up for my email list. Okay. And then the second thing I had was a QR code that sent them to the Amazon sales page. So that way, if I did run out, they can still buy it right then and there.
That was going to be my
And
next question.
yes, absolutely. And that way, because if you wait, if you tell them, well, give them a card. I've seen people give them a card. They can go to your website and buy it. That card's going to end up in the trash. It's going to get lost or whatever. QR code right there, right on I have it on at the top of my email list sign up sheet, physical sheet, so that way they can sign up for it, scan the QR code, buy the book, and all in one fell swoop. Again, making things as easy on the customer as possible.
Mm. That's such a great idea, and to have it there while they're talking to you is so much better
Right.
than taking a card back home and then forgetting about it, because
Exactly.
you can really pinpoint it then.
Yeah.
That is such a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And then another thing I do, and this is really going to depend on your target audience. But I always like to have coloring pages there. Balloons that, kind of draw attention, depending on
Yeah.
if you're doing a craft fair and it's outside. The people that are organizing it may allow you to do something which I love, which is having a little bubble blower
Bubble blower.
that blows that blows bubbles, because kids will see those bubbles
Yeah.
like you know halfway across the room
Mm.
and will find where you're at, little
Yeah.
things like that. Again, especially if your stuff is oriented around children. But even if it's not, if you're doing puzzle books, having some free puzzle, a stack of puzzle pages, it can be the same puzzle, just a stack of them that people can take and see
Yeah.
what kind of stuff, especially if you're doing unique puzzle types like Hashiwaka Karos and things like that I like to make. Something that's unique. Absolutely. Have it there where they can just take it. So even if they don't buy your book, they still have something. And of course, I always have my brand name and a QR code at the top of those pages. So again, they can go and even after they leave, they can still take something a little bit, with them about
Yeah.
that still builds my brand.
That's perfect. And I really like that idea of, if you run out of books, you still have ways of making those sales. And I think maybe we should mention that where would we get those books from? So obviously it would be author copies
Author
from
copies.
Amazon.
Right.
And I would say make sure you order them well in advance, because I realize they take much longer to arrive than the books
Right.
that you normally buy. And I've heard
Exactly.
stories where it can take weeks. So it's always a good
Yeah.
idea to plan.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I say planning ahead
Mhm.
it is super important. Make sure that you have the books in plenty of time. Like I said, any other side things you want to do, coloring pages, anything like that, you want to make sure that you have. I always suggest having an email sign up sheet, so you can still add any whatever platform you're on, whether it's MailChimp or whatever. There's a way to add in basically import in email addresses. So you can do that, and you just make sure you keep that as a written documentation. But yeah, those are some of the things that I say you really want to do as early as possible, because like you said, those author copies, especially if you're doing it, you're planning on doing it around the holidays, you really want to get those ordered fairly quickly. because
Yeah.
they do prioritize customer purchases over author purchases. So
Yeah. And that's understandable.
right,
And as long as we know and we order well in advance, that's always
right,
a good thing. So yeah, that's good. And I really like the ideas you had about the bubble machine and the
yep,
balloons. And it's always nice to have something that's appropriate for your audience. So
agreed.
that's a really good idea. And you could do something maybe for adults as well. Just have something that kind of draws them to your stand as opposed to
Yeah,
somebody else's stand. So
right.
yeah, that's a few things. You've given me a few things to think about there, how I can
Yeah.
promote my books that
And
way.
just to be clear, it's you want to make sure that you get author visits, not proof copies, because proof copies,
Yeah,
especially with KDP, are going to have that strip around it that says not for
can't
sale.
resell them.
You definitely don't want those.
Yeah,
But yeah, but author copies, that's when you're going to get it at the lowest price. And buy is, like I said, I wouldn't buy too many because you don't want to end up with, some that you just can't get rid of. But I mean, buy more than five. So like I said, I,
yeah,
I would say to start 10 to 15 is probably going to be enough. And if you run out, that's great. And you keep track of that. So that way, the next time you do it, if you ordered 15 and you ran out, you can kind of get a feel for how many people scan that QR code, or make a little note on a piece of paper or whatever, so you know about how many people you basically, for all intents and purposes, you're turning away. So you make sure that you buy more than that. So if you turned away 5 people and you bought
yeah.
15, I'd say buy 25, 30 next time.
Mm,
And it depends on how frequently you're going to do it as well. Because if you
yeah,
plan, once you do that first one, the first one's going to be hectic. I'm not going to lie. I always go in with um, the the anticipation that I'm going to get one person, um, and that way I'm not disappointed if I only get one person.
yeah,
But usually I'm pleasantly surprised, and especially if you really work on that rapport, and you've got books that are good quality. The more you do it, then the more people you're going to see repeat customers, because
yeah.
they'll also, and this is something that I do, is I also tell them, you can follow me on all social media platforms if you want to see when I'm putting out something new or whatever. And you'll be surprised at how many long-term followers, not just someone who's buys one of your books on Amazon and then that's it. They never buy another book. These are people that, again, they feel that connection with you, and there's something called reciprocity, where they feel like they have to do something for you because you've taken the time to talk
That's
to them or
right.
whatever. And so you really can build a rapport that can last and I know you and I both talk about branding all the time.
Mm,
Really long lasting brand recognition, and
yeah.
of someone that's going to be a follower for a long time.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think you mentioned, having an email sign-in form.
Mhm.
Would you say that it's important to offer something in return as well, or would you just have a sign-in form where you say, I can send you some more information? How do you normally do that?
See, that's one of the great things about being in person is instead of these, if you do it online, and most people, they want something for free.
Yeah,
I usually don't get, because they don't feel like they need something for free because they've just had this conversation. So they already feel like they've gotten something,
yeah,
and again, because they've got that connection, I literally just say, hey, if you want to get alerted the next time I put out a book, or you want to know kind of, sometimes I'll ask, depending on the brand, but especially with my no content, low content books, I'll reach out to my newsletters, and I'll ask for ideas. Do you
mm,
have an idea for a puzzle type, or do you have an idea for, a new theme that you think would be fun, or whatever, and I tell them that. And then they're excited because it's obviously, if they're at your table, it's something they're interested in.
mm,
And so then now you're telling them, I ask my customer, people love to hear that their opinion matters. And so again, I don't offer them anything else. I just tell them what to expect. I don't blast you. I'll email at most once a week. Many times I don't even do it that frequently. And so for those particular email lists, and so I just let them know. Usually it's to either ask you for some input, to give you maybe a free puzzle type that I'm working on, and see if you can figure it out, if you can, if you like it, if you can find an error with it, if you can solve it. or I'll just be like, hey, I just launched a new book. So
Yeah.
those are really the things that I tell them. And like I said, I don't give anything free. I mean, there's like a stack of, like I said, free puzzle pages
Yeah.
there that people can take. And the great thing is that because I only have one puzzle type in there, or one puzzle, you don't worry about people taking like 13 of them, they just take one because it's the same one. But yeah, so
Yeah.
those are the things I do for to kind of grow my email list while I'm there.
That's a brilliant idea. I really like that. So just to sort of summarize a little bit, we've sort of mentioned schools and libraries and bookstores, and
Mhm.
the other thing is, would you approach them all in the same manner, or would you do things differently for each type of venue?
I think honestly, it's pretty much the same across the board. It really comes down to how how are you going to help them? So
Okay.
whether you're going to a school, I mean, I for teaching or for writing, I mean, maybe I write children's books and I could go to the kindergarten class and just or the library and just read my book.
Mm.
That said, I can also go to the fifth grade class and talk about character building. I can talk about, how I character arcs and things like that. And
Yeah.
so it's really what are you bringing to the table that will benefit them? So whether it's a school, how it's going to benefit the student or the school. If it's if you're going to a store, how are you going to help them? Well, it's mostly going to be I'm going to bring more people into your store.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, that's really the way I approach it is with the general understanding of what am I going to do to, here's what I'm going to do. Having me here is going to help your business, whether it's a school or a store.
That's perfect advice. I think that that kind of makes sense, and it's also a way that you can think before you make that phone call, because I know that's always
Right.
the scary bit. What do I
Mhm.
say? What do I? How do I approach the subject? So that's something to think about. How can you say it in a way that is going to help them as well? That's going to make it interesting for them to have you at their store.
Right.
And I imagine with schools, it's the same thing. And if you decide to have book parties, that's easier
Right.
because that would be among friends.
Hmm.
But then your friends can have friends as well. And
Right.
sometimes it grows through that way. Because when I did the jewelry parties, there were a lot of people there that I didn't know, but they were friends of my friends. So
Yeah.
that was one way of doing it. And I imagine it's the same for books. And there were some really good tips here. So I'm quite excited because I think I actually might go and look into it
Yeah.
and do some book signings or something like that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's, and the one reason why I try to go with that same mentality is I don't want to ever feel like I'm going off a script, you know?
Yeah.
And so I want people to get my authenticity when I'm talking to them, when I'm, saying, hey, I'd love to do an author visit, or I'd love to have a little table at your store, for, such and such a day where I'm gonna be selling my puzzle books or my coloring books or whatever. And again, I'm going to be broadcasting it over my social media so people, my followers and everybody will know I'm here. So I'll be bringing in more people into your store. Again, just if when you have a very clear and consistent idea, regardless of who you're going to, it makes it a lot easier and a lot more comfortable, to just explain what you're doing. Like, this is my idea. I'm trying to, I want to meet people that are interested in my books. I want to meet them face to face, and I'd
Yeah.
love to do it at your store, or I'd love to, do it at your school or whatever. So, yeah, those are, and one thing to keep in mind, especially author visits. I've seen people, and I've heard people say that, I wanted to do an author visit, but there's no elementary schools near me. You can do virtual visits. You can do visits over Zoom or whatever. It's thanks. One of the good things that came of 2020 is people are more open to that kind of, digital communication.
Yeah.
Again, you don't get as much. of the interaction, physical interaction, selling books, that kind of stuff. But especially with school visits in particular, they can work really well.
Yeah, that sounds good. And would you say that obviously the goal is to sell books always, but would you say that there's another goal here, and that is just to get your name out there and your brand, to make your brand more visible out there? Would you say that is just as important as selling some books?
I would actually argue it's more important.
Hmm.
I care more if I do an author visit or I do a craft fair. I care more about the interactions I'm having with these people and how I'm going to affect their relationship with me and my brand in the long
Yeah,
term than me selling a book. If I
yeah,
went and I bought 50 books and I didn't sell one, but I got people on my email sign up sheet. I've got people that are going to be looking out for my next book. That's well worth it.
yeah,
Because again, you get, and I kind of covered this in a one of my recent videos on my channel, is you got to remember it's more than a sale. You're impacting a life.
mm,
And that's what I get when I meet people face to face, is I get to see that I am impacting you. Whether you bought this book or not, I'm impacting you with the conversation we just had.
yeah,
I talk about my grandkids or whatever. We have this where you feel like you know me. And so I'm building that brand. I'm building that brand recognition and that rapport with them that's going to last far beyond, buying one book where I make,
mm.
a couple bucks off of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reason I ask this is because I do hear a lot of people say, I've done this author signing or I've done this school visit and I've only sold 2 books, I've only sold 3
That's
books.
fine.
And I'm thinking, that's not bad. It's not
Yeah.
about those 2 or 3 books. It's about the whole experience. It's about getting your name out there. It's about people getting to know who you are. And I know one author visit might not make a big dent into anything,
Hmm.
but if you're making 2, 3, 4, and slowly chipping
Right.
away at it, I think that has value in itself, not just in the amount of books that you sell. Would you say that as well?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And you can even ask people, be like, I would love, um, and people always ask, follow me on social media. But
Yeah.
a fun way to do that, instead of asking for people to follow you, is to say, and that's whether they buy your book or they took that free paper that you had there or whatever. I'd love it if you took see if you can, I'm just gonna say puzzle books, but see if you
Yeah.
could fill this out, or a coloring book or whatever, and take a picture of it and tag me on
Yeah.
social media. I'd love to see how it turned out or whatever. And again, they're tagging you, so they're giving you free promotion out there, because whoever's following them, whoever
Yeah.
they're friends with, are now seeing you and your book and your brand name.
Yeah.
So yeah, even if, and of course, if they buy a book, that's even better. You say, I'd love to if when you're reading it or whatever, you want to take a picture of it. I'd love to do, I call them in the wild. So it's like books in the wild. I'd love for you to tag me and, hashtag books in the wild or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Again, making it fun, making it interactive. And it's a great way to build that brand. And again, even if you've only sold one book, and I've known people who have, like I said, bought, 15, 20 books and haven't sold any.
Yeah.
But, did they get people that signed up on their email list? Did they get people to know their brand? Now, it's one thing if you're sitting at the table, I'm just going to say an author visit, but if you're sitting at the table and people are walking by and you're not talking to anybody, then it's not going to do you any good.
Mm.
You have, that's one of the things I wanted to make sure that I point out, is that you do want to greet people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to, have a lifelong conversation with them and tell them, all your grandkids' names or whatever, but just a simple smile and a greeting. Um, so they know you're there and they remember you. And
Yeah.
that's really all it takes. So even if you're an introvert, you can, as an old cartoon Madagascar says, smile and wave. So there's still something you can do.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, this has really been an eye-opener for me today because I've often thought about it, but I've never really thought about it enough to
Hmm.
actually take action. And I think
Yeah.
now I'm going to take action, and I'll tell you all about it
Sounds
when
good.
it
Sounds good.
happens. Yeah.
The only other tips I would give is when you book it, because we're saying, plan ahead, make sure you got the books, make sure
Yeah.
you got everything, make sure that you spread the word ahead of time,
Mhm.
and as much as possible. Again, you've already, so and so promised that, this company, you're going to bring more people in there,
Yeah.
but not just that. You don't want to just be sitting there twiddling your thumbs and nobody comes and says hi.
Yeah.
Even if it's just friends and family, whatever, you're still bringing them into the store, so they're still going to be happy the owners are still going to be happy to see them, but there are also people there make you feel a little bit more comfortable. And then the other thing is, and I cannot stress this enough, and I didn't do this for probably the first couple of years of me doing them, is have someone there with a camera. Have someone to take pictures of you at the signing. Don't take pictures of people's faces, but they can take a picture, from behind somebody,
Yeah.
so you're seeing you signing this and just the back of the head of somebody. Maybe if you're doing an author visit and you have permission, have somebody video it, because these are things that are not only something that you can put on your website, but you can also share snippets of it on your social media or whatever. And again, it's just more promotional and marketing that you can do. It also shows, especially author visits, it shows the interaction of the students with you. And so then it makes it that much easier to book the next author visit, because you can go to another school and you can, show them, here's some clips of one that I did recently,
Yeah.
and they can see how it is benefiting the children, how it is, how the kids are interested in it. Or again, if it's a craft fair, you're probably not going to be doing, too many videos, but you can still, have pictures of it there. And again, don't take pictures of anybody's face but your own. But it's nice to have somebody else do it, so you get a different
Yeah.
perspective than just the author. I mean, you could take pictures too, but again, having a third person there to kind of get it from a different perspective.
Yeah. No, that sounds like really good advice as well. That's a brilliant idea, and it's again something that I wouldn't have thought of, maybe, of taking pictures. And I understand what you're saying about taking them from the
Mhm.
back and not people's faces. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
that's a very good point. So I've actually learned a lot today that I didn't think. I knew there were things that I didn't know, but there were actually a lot of things I didn't know, and I heard some really good advice here today.
Good, good.
So
I'm glad. And I think if there's anything to take away from this, it's um I know it can be scary, and I
mm,
don't want you to be scared. Like, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. Um, Even if you're an introvert, you can do it. Again, if for the introverted people, I would say invite your friends. Don't even worry about inviting, just random people. Just invite your friends. Kind of like what you said about having a party at someone's house. Same
mm,
thing. Invite your friends and invite your friends as friends.
yeah,
Just so you can get you can get familiar with it. And then the next time you do one, and maybe, then you'll put it on social media, and you'll get, strangers in there, because obviously you're going to get people that are just normally at the store anyway. If they see
yeah,
someone sitting there at a table with, that they know normally isn't there, it's already going to draw their attention. And so, you're going to get some people that are, that you don't know. But by being surrounded by people that you do know, that can kind of uh, help contradict that and counteract the fear, I
mm,
think. And again, understanding that you don't have to buy hundreds of books. um, like I said early on, I would say 10, maybe 15. But make sure that you have that backup. Make sure you have that, your website, or that QR code or something where someone can go to that website if you do run out. So again, you don't want to, have anybody, feel like they've walked away empty-handed. So
yeah,
if they've wanted a book, there's a way for them to get it, even if
yeah.
you run out.
And get as many email lists, as many email addresses as possible as well
Right,
while you're there, because
right,
I think that is another important reason to do a signing as well.
right.
Yeah.
And
So
like I said, you're going to get, and you're going to get more. The people that do sign up are going to be those ones that are going to be more responsive when they do get an email.
mm,
You might not get a lot, but those are the people that, because they saw you, they know who you are. We sign up for so many email lists, we don't even know why we're on it, or they don't even remember, where they signed up. But this is something, because it's unique, because it's different, they're going to remember that.
Yeah. And the other thing that I can think of is look approachable as well, because I feel like sometimes people hide themselves when they're in a place where they're trying to promote something. I saw that a lot with the jewelry business when we went to schools and there were other stalls, other people doing different things, and a lot of them were sitting behind their stalls and hiding away because they didn't want to really speak to anybody. And I think it's good if you stand up and you smile at people, like you said earlier, because you just look more approachable that way, and you do want people to talk to you. So
and don't sit there with your arms crossed. If people are talking to you, make eye contact, little things like that.
Exactly.
That I say are little things, but especially for introverted people are difficult.
Yeah.
So I guess if there was another tip, I'd say, don't be afraid to give yourself a break. You don't have to be there at the table. Let's say you're signed up for 2 hours. You don't have to be there the whole 2 hours. Take a 5-minute break or whatever. And that's another good reason to have somebody there that, a friend or somebody there that can kind of be your part two when you take a break. If you need to step away, especially if you're in a place that gets busy, you might get overwhelmed with just human beings in your vicinity. It can be very draining. I get that.
Yeah.
So again, I think that all comes with plan ahead. Have a backup plan. If I get overwhelmed, what am I going to do? You can't just run out the door crying and screaming, but whether it's you have to use the restroom or whatever, have a backup plan. Have somebody there that can kind of watch the table while you step away.
Yeah, do it with a friend. It's even nicer.
And it's less scary that way.
Yeah, a lot less scary. And I think that once you've done one of them, the next one will be easier. So
it will.
Definitely.
Well, this has been another great mastermind area. Once again, a huge thank you to all our listeners and viewers who came to tag along. If you enjoyed today's mastermind, please consider subscribing or following the podcast, and maybe even leave us a review and let us know what you thought. Until next time, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Corby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.